Hi everybody, welcome people who have done some cacti before and welcome people who haven't, new members, new people who are interested in cacti, welcome. Okay, so today we're going to do a little sort of jaggedy cacti. Some of you may have seen cacti like this before, some of you might not. We're going to do a little square pot like this. Nice and simple. I know some of you struggled with yesterday's because there was quite a lot of detail on there. So this one also has quite a bit of detail, but it's a little bit easier than the one we did yesterday. Okay, so we've got lots of, so it's a bit like a vertical leaf shape. Not quite like an oak shape, but it's got pointed edges to it. And then you just add layers. So another layer here. Try and vary the squiggly shapes that you're making, and then add a further one. And they would all be different. So you've got 1, 2, 3 on one side, and you've got the same on the other. So it's almost symmetrical. Don't worry if they look different. That's okay. But they must sort of curve back in to the base of the plant. And then on the top, we're going to do a flower. And you can make up your flower. Doesn't have to be the same as mine. But I'm going to do, again, I'm going to stick with the spiky sort of theme and do another spiky. We have done one flower already on the sort of the one that was like my Christmas decoration, which was the round one with the 3 little red flowers on top, orange flowers on top. So that's the drawing. Okay, so we go in first with a larger brush. So I've got my detail brush and my small round brush here. That's the one I'm going to use first. Dry it off if you've had it standing in water. You mustn't stand your brushes in water, by the way, because if you do, they curl up. So make sure you take them out, wash them off, take them out, form them with your fingers like this, and then lay them down flat to dry. All right. Now, so let's start with the green. I'm going to use some of the, because I've got quite a lot of colour on my palette left over from the last few days. So I'm going to use the green that's left over here. I might as well. This is why watercolour is so great, because you just re-wet it and reuse it. So I think this was the green I used on the one that had 3 cacti in it, the little cacti tray that we did. So I'm going to use that again so I don't waste it. There's no need for it to go down the sink when you can make, I know there are several artists, some of which are online, who paint enormous paintings just using the dirty paint on their palettes, which is quite incredible, but really interesting to watch. So go and find them and have a look. Into that, while it's still wet, I'm going to add some yellow. So I've got some cadmium yellow here again. That's your primary yellow. And I'm just going to go over zigzaggy bits with a bit of yellow. Now that will bleed. Remember what we said about bleeding is when the colour runs in, the colours run into one another like that. Okay, and also down the middle. Okay, leave that to dry for a moment while we paint the rest of it. So taking the same brush, I've just washed it off and I'm just going to dab it off on my little cloth here. We're going to paint the pot and we're going to do the pot a turquoise colour. Now, in my set here, I don't have turquoise. So the easiest way to mix a turquoise, if you haven't got one, is to take a blue, something like a cobalt blue or a cerulean blue. These are your sky blue colours. And if you can find a section of your palette that's not too dirty, put the blue down there like that. And then add one of the greens into it. Now you'll get different turquoise colours according to which green you mix. So it's an interesting experiment to see what colours you get. So you can see that blue is quite powerful. So I'm going to need to add a little bit more of that green to make it. And that was too much. Can you see? That was too much. So I'm going to have to add a bit more blue into it. And you should end up with a turquoise green colour. Okay, try it out on your paper. You can always try it out on a scrap before you put it down onto your paper. Now you can see that's quite green. So I'm just going to add a little bit more blue into it. And you can almost mix the colour on your paper. But that's why I always have a scrap piece of paper to one side just to experiment with colours until I get them right. That's quite a dark turquoise colour. If you want it lighter, just add more water. Remember, with watercolour, that's what you do. To make colours lighter, you just add more water. Don't add white. White just kills your colour in the same way that black does. So make sure that you just add more water if you want it to be thinner, and more colour if you want it to be thicker. So what did we say about the flower? Red flower. Have we not used? Right. So I've got in my set here, I've got cadmium red, alizarin crimson, and rose madder, which I've used before. I might use that one again. This is a red that sits on the pink side of the red spectrum. So I don't know whether this is yet dry. So I'm just going to, I don't know whether my hairdryer is plugged in, but let's try it, shall we? Okay, just to make sure it's dry so it doesn't bleed. So here we go with the rose madder. You can do this with a detail brush if you want those spikes to be really fine, but my brush is it's got a nice fine point on it, so it's not doing too badly. So I've managed to paint this entire cacti with the same brush, which is quite useful. There's your flower. Okay, so now that this is dry, I'm going to paint in some lines, and I'm going to do them in a darker green. So what I've got here is, well, you can use either a Windsor green or a Viridian green, whatever darker green you've got in your set. I've got several greens here you can use, and you need a nice detailed brush. And you're just going to go over those zigzag lines with your brush, which is why you need it to be nice and fine. And again, if you don't have a fine brush, then use a pen or a pencil, or even if you've got a watercolour pencil, that would also work. So do use the materials that you've got to hand. You might not have all of the things that I have here. And then if you want, you can go out and buy yourself some. I'm just going to put one down the middle, very delicately like that. I'm not going to do the one on the outside because then it will look like you've outlined it, and we don't want that to happen. Got a couple of seconds left, so I'm just going to put in some, using the excess paint that I've got left on my brush. I'm just going to put some lines, really fine lines, starting at the bottom and just flicking outwards like that on there. And I'm also going to put a darker line just along the top of the cactus pot and down the side. And if you want to, you can put some extra shadow on that side like that. The paper is now dry, so you'll see hard lines instead of soft lines. Okay, I think that's probably it. I'm quite happy with that. 10 minutes. Well done, everybody. Hope to see you again tomorrow. Remember, it's every day throughout January. Don't forget to like and subscribe and share your pictures online and share them with me. Send them to email. My email address is in the chat, but if you haven't got access to the chat, it's sheridanjulianne@gmail.com. Okay, ta-ra for now. Have a good day.